The gentleman yields. Now recognize myself for 5 minutes for the purpose of asking questions. Chief Son, since January 6, 2021, have you testified or been asked to testify publicly before a committee of the House of Representatives?
No, sir.
Did the January 6 Select Committee ask you to publicly testify before their committee?
No, sir.
But you did testify in the Senate, correct?
Yes, sir. The Senate combined hearing, I think it was February 23rd.
Can you briefly tell us about that?
It was a combined hearing. I think it was a really good approach of how to come in and address it. Initially, they did not want anybody that was no longer in their position to testify, which would have excluded myself, Senate Sergeant Arms Stenger, and House Sergeant Arms Irving. And I went and specifically asked the Senate Rules Committee, please let me come and testify. I will testify in person to show up. They changed the rules and allowed me to show up.
So you had to basically force yourself in to even be able to testify before the Senate committee.
I had to call in somebody I knew there and tell them, I promise you, I will show up in person. I was the only one to be there in person, not on video.
Thank you for your vigilance there. Chief Son, you previously testified on January 3rd, 2020, or on January 3, 2021, 3 days before January 6. You met separately with House Sergeant at Arms Paul Irving and Senate Sergeant at Arms Michael Stenger. And you asked them to approve a request for National Guard assistance on the 6th. Now, this is on January the 3rd. I believe this was in your book that you met with both Stenger and Irvin and requested National Guard assistance to be ready on the 6th. Can you explain what happened in those two meetings with Irving and Stenger?
Absolutely. So on the morning of the 3rd at 9:24 a.m., I specifically went to see him because I know what a big deal it is to have National Guard come and assist us on the Hill. I went into his office again, 9:24 in the morning, went up and immediately went up and said, hey, I'd like to bring in the National Guard to support me to assist me on the perimeter, because when we have a joint session of Congress, it takes a lot of my personnel inside. But immediately, as soon as I asked him, his first response was, I don't know, I don't like the optics of that. And his second response was, besides, the intelligence doesn't support it. He immediately, then we began talking, he said, have you reached out to Mike Stenger on this? I said, no, I have not talked to him about it yet. He said, why don't you talk to Stenger and see what he has to say? So then I left, went over to Mike Stinger's office at 9:35 in the morning, walked into his office, he wasn't there. I came back, he showed up at 11:13, I showed back up at 11:53 and went in to immediately ask him, I'd like to request the National Guard. He said, let's come up with another idea. Why don't you call, do you know somebody at the National Guard? I said, yes, sir, I know General William Walker. He said, why don't you call Walker and see if we need them, how quickly could they get here, and how many people could they send us? So I called William Walker 6:14 p.m. that night. He told me they have 125 people assisting with COVID response. He could reallocate those fairly quickly once he got Secretary of Defense approval and send them over.
Okay. When you met with Stenger, had Irvin given him heads up that you were coming to ask for National Guard?
Yeah, later on, after January 6th, specifically on April 8th, I went and had lunch with Mike Stenger. And I asked him, because it was kind of unusual. He came up with that idea so quickly when I went walking in. And I asked him, I said, Mr. Stenger, you came up with that response fairly quickly for me to call General Walker. And he had told me Paul Irving had called him ahead of time and said, son came here asking for the National Guard. We got to come up with another plan. Pelosi will never go for it. I was floored by him saying that.
Okay, so you don't know, I know this word optics has come up several times in the past or in different contexts. Do you know if Irvin had discussed that with Stenger, of what a possible response would be?
I have no idea, sir.
All right. Around 2 p.m. on January 6th, you joined a call with Metropolitan Police Department Chief Conte and National Guard representatives. According to Chief Conte's transcribed testimony given to the Select Committee, you asked the National Guard to send assistance on that call, and he didn't hear the military people respond to your plea. Is that what you remember?
No, he heard clearly the military respond to my plea and say they recommended against my request for the National Guard. Robert Conte immediately butted in and said, let me get this right. You're denying the chief of the Capitol Police? And again, he just, I can go farther into that if you want.
Okay, thank you. Are you familiar with the term data miner?
I have become familiar with it, yes.
Yeah, and according to a book by Carol Lenning, General Milley was using this tool and reached out to Senator Angus King, warning him about violent rhetoric for January 6th. Some of the intelligence included references to smuggling guns and other weapons into D.C. One message said, "Let's burn Senator McConnell's house down while he's in it." Another one, seemingly addressed to members who supported certifying the election, said, "We're coming to kill you. Just wait a few days." Did General Milley ever reach out to you and share these concerns with you of any of this intelligence?
No, sir.
Do you know if he reached out to either of the sergeant-at-arms?
I have no idea, sir.
Would this intelligence have helped the Capitol Police prepare for January 6th?
Absolutely.
Okay.